Hi, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Tracy Windsor. I'm with the Psychosocial Rehabilitation Advanced Practice Program. I'd like to begin by welcoming and acknowledging that I'm joining you from the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations in Vancouver, BC. I'm grateful to be here on this land. We're really excited about today's session, which explores how Foundry engaged youth peer support workers in research and evaluation through a creative and collaborative escape room activity. It's a great example of how playful, accessible methods can support meaningful participation and reciprocal learning in youth-centered work. Before we get started, I just want to do a few housekeeping notes. First of all, the chat is open, so feel free to introduce yourself in the chat, maybe where you're calling in from. Throughout the presentation, you can share reflections or connect with others throughout the session. We ask that you keep the conversation respectful and relevant to the topic at hand. Then if you have questions for the presenters, we ask that you put the questions in the Q&A box, not the chat. If you'd happen to put them in the chat, we will see them, but they might kind of get rolled up and we might kind of miss them. So any questions you want addressed, please put it in the Q&A box. You'll also notice a thumbs up icon next to each question in the Q&A as they come up. And so if we do get a few questions, you can upvote the ones that you want to see answered. So it's kind of a cool way to have different questions answered and prioritize the questions. And just so you know, we'll be saving all of the questions till the end of the presentation. So feel free to drop your questions in as they come up, and we'll get to as many as we can during the Q&A session at the end. And finally, this session is being recorded. It is a webinar, so only the panelists' audio and video will be recorded. We can't see or hear anybody, so don't worry about having your camera off or muting. We don't have access to that. So the session is being recorded. Only the panelists are being recorded, and the recording will be available on demand through Zoom, through YouTube, and on the Psychosocial Rehabilitation Advanced Practice of BC website. So you can always come back to this video, share it with others. And yeah, so thanks again for being here. We're really glad you could join us. And I'm going to hand the mic over to the Foundry team. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the introduction. Just bear with me while I get this presentation going. Does it look good? Can we see it? Okay, awesome. Yeah, really excited to be here. We have some introductions on the third slide, but just want to recognize that we're here to share about our experience traveling across the Foundry network, the research and evaluation team. And our project in this presentation is entitled Escaping Evaluation and Research Myths in Integrated Youth Services, an innovative strategy for cultivating meaningful relationships between youth peer support workers and evaluation and research teams throughout the Foundry network. The two presenters are myself and Cass, and we are here with Lillian and Cheyenne, who are peer support workers at Foundry. And just want to recognize that this project and this work was also supported by Emily Booker and Madeline White, and is supported by our project sponsors, who are Matt Wagner and Sky Barbic. So we want to give a land acknowledgement for Foundry Central Office as well as the Foundry Network. And currently I'm calling from the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations in Vancouver. And that's where FCO, our central office, is located. But our work takes place across many other First Nation communities across BC. And we recognize that the field of research and evaluation is dominated by Western ways of knowing that continue to perpetuate colonial perspectives that may cause harm to Indigenous communities. And we as an evaluation and research team are committed to learning and unlearning by prioritizing culturally responsive and equitable evaluation and research, and by adopting other ways of knowing into our work, like two-eyed seeing approaches. So quick introduction of everyone here. I think I'll start because I'm already speaking. My name is Luke Sonia. I use the pronouns he and him, and I'm an evaluation specialist at Foundry Central Office. And let me hand it over to Cass.
Hey folks, Cassia Warren. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a senior research coordinator here at Foundry, and I'll hand it over to Cheyenne.
Hi, my name is Cheyenne Sulin. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a peer support worker at Foundry Caribou Chilcotin. I'll pass it off to Lily.
Hello, my name is Lillian. I am a peer support worker and a research assistant as well, and I go by she, her.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
That's me. So a little bit of the workflow that we'll go through today. We'll spend a bit of time talking through our project itself, the background and its development, why we created this escape room, and how it was designed to reflect our research and evaluation processes. And then we'll move into a bit of a dialogue between our research and evaluation teams and Cheyenne and Lillian as our youth peer support workers to reflect on the impacts that this escape room had on themselves and their centers, our teams, and the peer support projects and activities that came out of this work. And then we've got lots of time for a question period and discussion period with the audience.
Awesome. And thank you, Tracy, for forwarding the PSR competencies. We wanted to tailor this presentation to speak to those three competencies. So first, forming effective relationships that are centered on reciprocity with individuals and supporters using a collaborative approach. For us, this included recognizing our positionality as research and evaluation staff and aiming to reduce power imbalances through a creative play-based approach with this escape room. And second, having interest holder involvement, guide and direct continuous monitoring and evaluation with the aim of improving services across Foundry and in the peer support program. Ourselves and the peer support staff recognize the importance of funder expectations in healthcare, and we recognize that our work must also be digestible and actionable with service users and service staff across Foundry. And last, all of this work and this initiative centered around engaging people with lived experience, both through their personal lives, but also through their service delivery as peer support workers. Foundry has a wide reach across British Columbia, and this presents nuance in both communities that we serve and the staff that we employ. And as healthcare leaders, we wanted to bridge the gap between research and evaluation fields to those doing amazing work across our centers in a strength-based way. Before we get started, wanted to give a brief overview of what Foundry is, as well as what peer support looks like in our organization. We'll have our youth peer support workers help with this because they really do understand peer support best and have that peer support lens. Foundry itself is an integrated youth service organization. We provide health and wellness services to young people and families, and our mission is to support youth in living a good life. This model was first implemented by Headspace Australia, and currently each province and territory in Canada is developing or has implemented an IYS model. Many IYS programs have an expanded definition of youth, with Foundry serving young people aged 12 to 24, and we offer 5 core service streams, with peer support being one of them. And yeah, happy to open the floor to Lillian or Cheyenne if they'd want to speak a sentence or two about what Foundry means to them or how they found out about Foundry.
I'll go first. I found Foundry about 3 years ago. I was working at a mill job. Before that, it was construction, and I was looking for a counselor. And actually, my counselor had her own like little business outside of Foundry, so we did one-on-ones like that. And it took her about probably 3 months for her to convince me to go to Foundry and check it out. And once I got there, I started going into a group called DBT, Dialectical Behavior Therapy Skills. And I was doing that for about a couple months. And then after that, I heard that they were hiring for peer support. So I applied. And ever since, I've been facilitating DBT. We actually started a new group called DBT 2.0 for youth that still wanted to do DBT but have gone through the first bit but once or twice. So we started to do a new one. And yeah, Foundry is a really welcoming place, and they've helped me a lot with just my social anxiety skills. And yeah, I don't know where I'd be without it, honestly. Feel like I've grown so much in the last 3 years since I found Foundry, and since I started working, my coworkers are amazing, and yeah.
Thank you. I can share next. I also ran into Foundry about 3 years ago, and I was a youth worker for a year prior to that. And yeah, I got to go into the building before it was created and look at the process of it being built up, which was an amazing experience. For me, Foundry is a really great place for connection, and it's a really great like hub source of endless opportunities. There's so many different directions that like you can go or learn more about or get education or support. Thank you.
Thanks so much, both of you, for sharing. I'll hand it over to Cass for this slide.
Yeah, a bit of background on peer support itself. And again, I'll pass to Cheyenne and Lillian in a little bit too and speak to what peer support means to them. But peer support builds community, trust, belonging, and connection by connecting clients or young people with peers who relate to their experiences. And incorporating lived experience in mental health services isn't new. It began in about the 1960s, mostly from patients being dissatisfied with their mental health practices and services that they were getting. And peer support services in this light often started as volunteer roles and has shifted now to being a paid occupation. Youth peer support workers and peer support workers in general use their lived experience to help folks navigate systems, foster hope, and support recovery. And they're unique from other healthcare roles as they really have that interconnection with the people that they're serving and are key to the mental health system development. And as part of a 3-year program of funding, our research and evaluation teams were tasked to understand the impact of peer support that it has on youth accessing the program at Foundry, as well as the youth peer support workers themselves. And you'll notice I've mentioned youth a lot. We're primarily focused on youth peer support workers, but Foundry has both youth and family peer support workers that we've engaged with in this process. And I'll pass it back to Cheyenne and Lillian if you want to speak a little bit about what peer support means to you and what the meaning is to the youth that you serve.
So youth peer support means like it's like a advocate, and to me, alongside of an advocate, it's kind of also like a friend who knows a little bit of everything with like if you need help referring and finding a doctor or a nurse, any of the counselors as well, because we like to let them know that we're there so then they can feel comfortable and they don't have to stick with one counselor or anything either, even along with peer support, because it's about the youth feeling comfortable and coming back. And for youth peer support, we do a lot of one-on-ones. We create groups based off of the youth's interests. Like one that's been a really good passion project was the cultural circle that both Cheyenne and I do. Bring in youth every week, and it was so nice just hanging out and letting them choose what type of art or project they'd like to work on. And yeah, and a lot of the youth peer supports too have a really big drive on training as well.
Just to bounce off what Lily was mentioning, another one of our coworkers had mentioned to us a youth's comment, and they were like, they absolutely love coming to the center because it feels like they have a built-in best friend because they know we're always going to be there. And they say that it like makes the programming more enjoyable, knowing that they'll have someone who's going to like be there and help them engage and help them feel comfortable. And then a lot of the programs are also like health and wellness, and I feel like as much as I enjoy it, we are also able to be there to like echo for the youth of the programs that they would like to see and that they would like to come to. And I think that's really important piece is advocating for the youth to make sure that like, first of all, that they're heard and understood and that like follow through happens. And yeah, I really enjoy being a peer support worker.
Thanks so much for sharing, and thanks, Cass, for the overview of peer support as well. And just a bit more information about Foundry Central Office. This is where Cass and I work. It's a backbone structure that supports the Foundry network. And we have many teams that support new and operating centers, as well as forming relationships with funders, sponsors, and Indigenous communities across the province. Foundry currently has 17 operating centers and a provincial virtual service, and we aim to open 18 additional centers in the near future. Our ultimate goal is to make physical and virtual Foundry services available to every youth in BC. And within peer support, our research and evaluation team, including the folks in the picture here, support data-driven program improvement and knowledge generation. Our main project is the peer support portfolio, but we also support other services such as our wellness program and Foundry's work and education program. So Foundry's peer support program was awarded a large grant that included a 3-year outcome-based research and evaluation mandate, and this requires working closely with program staff throughout our network to fill a crucial gap. We recognize that peer-based services have historically been underrepresented in our fields, and this has contributed to a power imbalance. And to address this, we wanted to meaningfully engage with peer support program members to break down barriers in understanding the role of research and evaluation at Foundry, and to create an environment where our teams and peer support staff can reciprocally learn from each other. To do this, we developed a barrier-breaking escape room game to demystify our work, which we brought to operating centers and virtual staff. And we wanted to focus on experiential learning approach to this activity because we recognize that service providers have a high workload. So a game-based activity really allowed our visits to be more like a break for them and something enjoyable. We also wanted to embrace the energy and creativity of a young workforce with a fun and engaging game that would be more likely to be remembered after we leave. And yeah, if Lily and Cheyenne want to share, we're just curious about some of the preconceptions they had about research and evaluation before we were able to come visit their center.
Well, mine, I just thought it was just strictly like working either on your laptop and it being Word documents or paperwork. I didn't really think that it would incorporate more of a game. Yeah, whenever I think research, I think that or some sort of lab.
Yeah, I just thought like statistics or like I thought numbers or like we're gonna have to go back into like all our, I don't know, files or something.
Make you do a test.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for sharing. Get the next slide here.
Yeah, so I'll dive into a little bit of what was involved and we'll go through the game itself. But over a span of 7 weeks, 4 of our team members visited 15 Foundry centers, and we connected with 55 peer support center staff, which was the majority of the workforce at the time and has since grown. Our team members co-facilitated this escape room activity, which typically lasted about an hour. And we introduced kind of a timed portion of it. So we had some friendly competition between the centers, and each center won some Foundry themed swag. And then following the escape room, we kind of sat around in the room and had discussions where staff could ask us about our work, what was involved in it, and we could connect with folks about what was unique to their communities and learn more about their peer support practice. Some of our motivations, as we kind of mentioned, was trying to move from the hesitations or unsurety of what research and evaluation was, for folks to be more enthusiastic about it, wanting to engage with it, recognizing that we'd be doing some research and evaluation projects that really were leaning on the peer support workers to be engaged with. And then just providing some of that reciprocal learning for us to learn about what peer support is, so we can ensure that our projects were really tailored towards the values and the interests of peer support, as well as building some community connection. And through these learning discussions, we gained insights into each community's unique needs and kind of identified 5 key themes that really shaped our work moving forward. And then into the game itself, we've got a slide for each of these games. So we'll go over in more detail, but we facilitated, it was a highly facilitated game. We didn't want it to feel like it was a test. So we went over the instructions at the start and then again through each of the puzzles. And there was 5 puzzles, and on the image on the left, you can kind of see the diagram that we used to guide people through the puzzles as we went through. And in the first puzzle, teams organized game pieces into myth and reality categories, and then they were given pieces of a consent form, and they used those to create a pitch with what was identified as the 5 key sections. The analysis station used mini puzzles to guide teams through stages of data cleaning, quality checks, analysis, and meaning making. And then using a blacklight, teams uncovered hidden words in knowledge mobilization products, completed a Mad Lib puzzle, and cracked a code to open a box, where inside was a riddle leading them to place pins on all the Foundry centers, representing the diverse voices captured in research and evaluation projects. And then after completing all 5 puzzles, teams unscrambled a final cipher to stop the clock.
Awesome. So I'll go over the first puzzle that we had here. So the first puzzle was meant to be a low barrier introduction to concepts related to both research and evaluation. And this really prompted peer support staff to think about common myths related to our work and to begin changing these perceptions. So some examples of the myths were you need a PhD to do research, evaluation only shows what isn't working, and research and evaluation are the same thing. Countering these, some evaluation and research reality statements were anyone can be involved in research, evaluation helps programs improve, and evaluation and research use many of the same tools. These 16 statements could be put together to complete 4 puzzles, those being research myth, evaluation myth, research reality, and evaluation reality. And each puzzle had different cutout shapes to help guide participants in completing each puzzle correctly. The ultimate goal of this first game was to identify misconceptions around our work and to transition to the understanding that research and evaluation are collaborative and involve input from participants and interest holders.
Our second puzzle was all about pitching projects, pitching research and evaluation projects. We wanted youth peer support workers to get comfortable to be able to pitch these projects, as we often lean on the center staff to let youth know about upcoming projects, and as well as we were having some projects coming down the pipeline where they would be participating in themselves. So getting comfortable with being able to pitch these projects was part of the fun. They had sections of consent form, including some key parts of the research process, like the consent process itself, eligibility, potential risks, and what participation entails, as well as content focused on the value of the work and what participants would gain from taking part, and other options like elements of co-creation and the application of OCAP principles. So they had to choose 5 key pieces that they thought were the most important to tell a youth right away. And then they practiced it by reading out the scripts on the back of their selections. And while there are some sections that were chosen by many teams, no 2 teams picked the same 5 elements. And it just got us reflecting on how our pitches are often a little bit of an elevator pitch, but that may not land for everyone because not necessarily because they aren't interested, but because you're not sharing the pieces that they really want to hear, and kind of underscoring that value of conversational recruitment approaches and leveraging existing relationships.
The third puzzle, which was my favorite, aimed to tackle the scary world of math analysis and statistics. And this kind of speaks about what Cheyenne said before about, statistics and analysis being involved in research, which it still is, but it can still be fun. So the aim of this puzzle was to highlight that anyone can understand a simplified version of analysis and that they can use analysis and research skills in various areas. This puzzle was purposely in the middle of the activity to try to show the central importance of analysis, whether it's qualitative or quantitative data, and that this is involved in research and evaluation projects. For this game, we had 4 mini puzzle stations that transitioned into each other, and each puzzle produced 1 number, which would be used to unlock a box containing a cipher piece. Participants were first showed a series of numbers covered up by dry erase marker, and they used an eraser to clean this data, with 1 number being the most legible. After this, the second station had participants complete a data quality check by matching numbers with different font types to each other. Adding up these numbers produced a second lockbox number. The third station had simplified math equations to mirror data analysis. And the responses to these puzzles translated to numbers relevant to Foundry, such as number of core services and the number of operating centers. So for the third puzzle here, the analysis station, they also added up for the third number for the lockbox. And then the fourth one also produced a number itself. The same to show the importance of analysis and how simple numbers can translate into important information. And it also stressed the importance of detail in our work, but ultimately tried to tackle something complex in a light and fun manner.
Fourth puzzle might have been my favorite, as it stood out because it was really highly tactile. So after solving the analysis station, participants uncovered a hidden black light, and many excitedly began scanning the room with it, trying to find out what it was used for, and eventually discovering that certain words on knowledge mobilization projects were highlighted with the light. We wanted to demonstrate that knowledge mobilization isn't limited to academic papers. And to do this, we used real-world outputs from another Foundry embedded research and evaluation portfolio, specifically the Foundry Works in Education program and some early peer support work. And these examples showcased creative ways to bring knowledge back to community, including a one-page infographic, art-based outputs, conference posters, and academic publications. Using the blacklight, participants uncovered 11 hidden words to fill in their Mad Lib word bank, and it guided them then to complete the Mad Lib using definitions for nouns, verbs, and adjectives. The final Mad Lib read, in knowledge mobilization, our goal is to bridge research findings and impact. Bridging knowledge to action requires more than just data. It demands collaborative connection with broader community. We aim to unleash the true potential of our research activities, ensuring they go beyond simply analyzed data points into the realm of practical action. We envision a future where research and wellness go hand in hand. In partnership with our peers, we strive to create a landscape where the range of diverse voices is heard and the utilization of knowledge becomes a shared endeavor. And then it said on the back, check your answers to shine the black light for your next code, which opened up a box to puzzle 5.
So the purpose of this last puzzle was to highlight the importance of including diverse perspectives in our research and evaluation work so that the outputs and the outcomes of our work are applicable to all Foundry centers and clients. To show this, we had printed out versions of the map of BC with the Lower Mainland magnified beside it. Participants were given a riddle that alluded to the need to cast homes wide and far with the aim of hearing all voices across BC. The physical representation of 17 centers and the distance between them was meant to strengthen the relevance of our work and how it captures voices across the province.
And as a clue kind of hidden in plain sight within the room, there was a tablet that flashed a map of all the open Foundry centers in BC. And as timing had it, as we were traveling to the centers, there was actually centers close to opening and others that were being announced at the time. So really kind of showcasing the even broader reach that all the data and information that they were capturing within their centers would have for the development of the new ones.
So throughout the escape room, participants received one piece of a cipher for each completed puzzle. This final cipher puzzle was meant to be low effort and draw a natural conclusion to the overall activity in the escape room. The cipher phrase was meant to emphasize how contributing to research and evaluation contributes to a large and meaningful work, and that this work cannot be completed alone. The final phrase said, by learning these research and evaluation skills, you and your center can help FCO in our work to secure funding for youth peer support. We also wanted to drive home the point that the work that we're doing for peer support is meant to support the program and to advocate for more and recurring funding for peer support across Foundry.
So we're going to jump into a bit of a panel format discussion between Cheyenne, Lillian, Luke, and I, talking about kind of that impact piece. How did this land with centers and youth peer support workers, and then as well as how it impacted the work that our research and evaluation teams were doing. So I'll start with that first question. What is the impact that the game had on you personally?
I can answer this one. For me personally, I think it just like broadened my perspectives to a lot of different different like research or ways of thinking as well within my own work, and then also working side by side with my coworkers to see like, oh, like I can see different areas of them light up during the game, and then so whenever I have those questions, I know who to go to as well, and it really helped build like the support system and highlight our interest as well.
I am going to second that. Yeah, like during the whole escape room, you can see like like teams go up to the tables who are confident and we're ready for it, and then some of us were just like in the background, like watching, seeing what they were coming up with, and that switched quite often throughout the whole escape room, and it was a lot of fun. Yeah, I really enjoyed that team building, along with having a fun way to remember like why we're working at Foundry, how it's impacting FCO, and how FCO is impacting us as well. Yeah, I just really like the connection because it wasn't just within the team, but like all of Foundry was doing it. And I was just thinking about, oh, I wonder what the other Foundry building is doing, or what they answered, or how they answered this. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Thanks both. I wonder if we want to go back and forth. Do you want to ask us one of the questions before we just keep asking you all of them?
It's posted in the chat, right?
Yeah.
What was the impact to you both?
You want to go first, Cass?
You're already off mic.
Okay. Yeah, I think that like a quite wide and like strong impact, I think personally. And I think I'd been working at Foundry for not even a year at that point when we started to travel. I can't quite remember. Anyways, I'm originally from Nova Scotia and I recognize British Columbia is quite large. And you see it on a map, but when you live in the lower mainland, you kind of stay in that bubble or you go to the island. So it really opened my mind to how big the province is and then just the diversity across communities. And I think even to see a center in person was like really enlightening. And even the first one we went to, which was Abbotsford, Foundry Abbotsford is one of the first centers that had opened up. And it just really connected the work that I do. And like we work for Foundry Central Office and most of us work remotely full time. So to see a physical location and to see service providers and to even see youth in the center really drew the connection between the importance of our work and making it not only impactful, but like digestible for center staff and for the youth as well. So that was great. And we learned so much. At the end of every game, we asked centers kind of drawing off of that data generalizability game. We just asked them like, had we missed information or not able to do research or evaluation project that included your center, what would we miss from your center and your community? And it was really enlightening to hear the differences between these communities and like not only the strengths that each center and community has, but also some of the unique challenges that they face. Whether it's like within like geographical considerations, recognizing a lot of Foundry centers, they're centrally located in a town or a city, but they have a large geographical reach. So recognizing some of those impacts, but then also kind of like the demographics or the diversity of youth and the different needs that youth have in those communities as well. So, I think for some people it might be daunting. You're like, oh, 17 centers, 70 communities, so many distinct and different strengths and challenges. But you could also see like a cohesive narrative across Foundry centers as well. So in that way is like really enlightening. And it was just great to travel for work as well and to get closer with my evaluation and research colleagues, but then also to make those connections with center staff that have remained ever since. And really, even just adding faces to email names and emails was really helpful as well.
Yeah, I'll jump on that. I'd been working for Foundry for I think 2.5 or 3 years at the time. So there was a lot of people in community that I had known by name or seen on a screen before. And it was really great getting into community and actually spending time with folks and building relationships. And so much that has stemmed from that, seeing Cheyenne and Lillian, at conferences and obviously more work with Lillian too as a research assistant now. Really just building in so much community engagement that has, I don't know, continued to motivate some of the work. I feel like being a little bit more disconnected at times, you can lose track of that meaningful on the ground work. And it's so nice to have folks to reconnect that with and see the impact that the work is making kind of at the individual youth level. And that kind of engagement piece, I really strive to make the work that we do meaningful to the people who it's going to be impacting. And for that, it's the youth and the youth peer support workers who are going to get the changes that are coming down because of the information that they're sharing. So having that level of engagement before we built the projects out fully was so valuable and really impacted me to continue to build that into all of the pieces of my work that I do. And then I'll bring back a question to both of you. How do you think that this kind of escape room game impacted your center or your peer support team?
I feel like it impacted us pretty positively. For one, realizing how many Foundry centers there were on top of how many were coming. It's kind of opened up the idea of reaching out to some of those Foundry centers as well, get some more input on what they were doing with their youth, how they were getting through some barriers as well. And also realizing how big of an impact just like our Foundry clinic has, for it being Caribou Colton and being the interior region. I didn't realize how far across that was, but that was pretty cool. And yeah, I enjoyed being able to spend some time with the team as well. It was a lot of fun. And then afterwards, we had some chocolate and some goodies from FCO. So it was really good.
I think they'll also have to echo like the importance of the diversity and how many centers that there were. In one, just knowing the difference between all of them, and how you mentioned in one of the games, no one center had all the same 5 answers. And I think that like really speaks of importance to like the location of where they are and maybe the barriers or the positives that they may have. And yeah, I think for our center, it just created a lot of connection and unity. And then it also gave us the support, like knowing how many different centers there are that we can reach out to, or how many other connections we have within FCO and Caribou Chilcotin and across BC. Thank you.
Do either of you want to pose that last question?
Yeah. What was the impact on the peer support projects you were developing?
I can start. Luke is looking at me. I kind of mentioned that, yeah, that importance of engaging communities in project development and how it's led to the projects that we came to be. So at the time, we were kind of in development of a couple different research projects that we then tweaked and shifted with the knowledge that we've gained by connecting with folks in person. So recently, after the visits and we developed the project, we launched a 2-year-long longitudinal research cohort study where we were recruiting youth peer support workers themselves. And we had 50% of our recruitment goal met within the first 48 hours, really highlighting the interest that was gained from doing these visits and and designing a project that I think really spoke to the needs and the wants of the youth peer support workers. We also opened up 2 research assistant roles, one of which Lillian is in, and a lot of the applicants named that our game inspired them to apply. So I think a really big impact there is having folks who might have been hesitant or unsure of what research and evaluation was, wanting to learn more and be involved in it, be involved with it a bit more. And I'll pass it on to Luke.
Yeah, it's like really large and wide impact. And during the visits, I had pitched after each visit with the peer support supervisors, developmental evaluation that we were looking to conduct across the network. And I'll be honest, I was a bit nervous that anyone would, one, hear the pitch, or two, be interested, because it was a very large project with 3 phases and a lot of engagement and involvement from folks who would volunteer to participate. And yeah, similar to the longitudinal study, I remember we had sent out emails after we'd done the visits, just seeing if there was interest from anyone, and it was overwhelming, to the point where we had to ask folks if they would be willing to wait or be engaged later on in the process. So that was just a really overwhelming response. And again, recognizing like there is a lot of, there's a high workload within these centers. So the fact that so many supervisors were keen, and also asked their peer support workers. And then we also asked other staff within the center as well. So that was really positive. And I think like more broadly, there was impact as well outside of the peer support portfolio. So the evaluation team, we have a yearly experience survey that we sent out across centers. And then after we engage and meet with centers to go over the results and get some input from them as well. And a lot of things that I learned across these different centers, I was able to bridge those gaps of the outputs and the results that we had, and just already make some meaning and understand. And it really did help when we engaged with those centers that we already had a good level of understanding of the experience within their centers as well. And then also we, as we mentioned in this presentation, Cass and I are on different other portfolios as well. And for our wellness program, we had conducted a sharing circle-based evaluation with Indigenous staff across the network. And it was really successful, and we were able to engage folks really quickly and easily. And that really was bridged from those connections that we had made through this escape room activity. So really high impact for the peer support program overall in terms of our projects, but also other evaluation and research activities that we do at FCO.
And as we shift into kind of a question period with the audience, I'll just name a quote that was given as part of the feedback. The activity helped to emphasize the purpose and importance of research and evaluation. It helped me to understand the extra work that goes into getting youth to do surveys makes an impact. And with that, we'll open the floor to the Q&A. And I think there's one in there as well as in the chat here. I guess I'll just read it off. One in the Q&A section, which participating centers benefited most from involvement of youth peer support workers in this project based on impact post-activity? That's a great question. I think one reflection that comes to mind, we did some of our kind of asking for feedback around the escape room activity quite long after we were in centers. It was many months. So really actually like identifying or quantifying benefit or impact was, I would say, challenging. Lessons learned, maybe send that evaluation survey out kind of close after, leave a few on the table. Yeah, I'll think on that more. Anything else from folks? Luke?
Well, can you repeat the question? Because I can't see the chat.
Oh, it's in the Q&A. Which participating centers benefited most from involvement of youth peer support workers in this project based on impact post-activity?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know if I'd considered that in terms of like specific centers, but I think like broadly, and there are quite a few centers that are newer or more remote as well, right? So they haven't had face time with FCO staff, especially in research and evaluation. So I think like when I can't think of a specific center, but when I think of like, yeah, Caribou Chicolton or in Terrace as well, and even Penticton, which is, it's not remote by any means, but I don't think like they had been engaged by research or evaluation at that point. So I think it was really impactful for those more rural and remote centers just to see us and understand and recognize that, like, especially on the research and evaluation team, like we're young professionals as well, and we're quite adamant about supporting peer support and motivated to as well. So I think that was impactful, and I think it really helped lessen some nerves around engaging with research and evaluation. But then I do think as well, when we had conducted the sharing circles for the wellness evaluation, there's Foundry Victoria, and we had connected with the peer support supervisor there, and I think it really was fueled off of our visit for the escape room game. So that one really stands out as well. And then in Abbotsford as well, we had another. Well, it wasn't a youth peer support worker, but we had met them after the escape room game as well. So just forming those initial connections, and I think it helped them. So when we'd emailed out, this is our evaluation project, is anyone interested? I think when they see our names in the email, they could recognize us from the visits. Yeah, but that's a great question. I hadn't really considered specific centers or even regions, really.
There's another one in the chat. Let me just scroll so I'm not missing anything above. After learning that everyone wants something different out of an elevator pitch, do you have any recommendations on how to present a study or run through a kind of research pitch or evaluation pitch?
Do you want to go?
The thing that came to mind for me is kind of know your audience, which is hard to do if you don't know your audience. But building those relationships and kind of gauging the conversation of what they would be interested in knowing. I know a lot of the times for our research, we're trying to get, we don't want to put too much information out there that they get overwhelmed and not want to participate just because it's too much information at one time. Our longitudinal cohort project, kind of leaning off of that, we created a video to use as a recruitment tool, as we found that folks were much more engaged, like when we came in person and we were talking about the research and engaging them in more of a conversational way than an email or a poster pitch, and found that the video really captured. We got another rush of recruitment after posting the video. And I think that really connected to more of that relational side. People could see and understand the value. We had youth peer support workers who designed the script and read it in the video as part of that project. So really kind of engaging with the audience would be my recommendation, how to present a study. And doing it in maybe a fun and creative way that will connect with the population level. I don't think a lot of peer support workers want to read a long email.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think I'll add as well, I think going in asking questions is super helpful. And I think we recognize there's different needs across centers and communities. And also recognizing, how we had mentioned in the beginning of this slide, there is a huge evidence gap for peer support, especially youth peer support. And then there's an added layer, which is IYS as well. So I think a lot of our evaluation and research projects initially were quite broad, or at least when we were scoping or pitching them. So there's a lot of opportunity to ask questions to folks who you're pitching the project to, and just recognizing that we can kind of integrate those perspectives into the project as well. I know research is a little bit different. Evaluation can be a bit more fluid in terms of like directions or questions that you take or ask. But I think certainly now, like looking back, because every center I did do a pitch afterwards and did want to be respectful of their time, recognizing they had just spent an hour with us. So it was quite quick and just trying to emphasize the important parts, especially when it comes to participating in the developmental evaluation. But I think going back now, I would definitely ask more questions, and I would definitely ask them like, what would be something important for us to ask or try to answer with this evaluation, and integrating that as well. But then I'll also add, like when I did this travel, I was still quite new to Foundry, and now I've been here 2 years. So I think like with time and experience and being within portfolios, you start to understand them more deeply. And I think it's easy to kind of be reactive in a good way. So if you ask a question and they say, oh, this is really important to me, I think now I'd have more knowledge and understanding of peer support to be able to ask deeper questions, then also kind of integrate that on the fly in a pitch, which I think would be really helpful when you're trying to engage new folks to participate in a project.
Some thumbs up. That is all the questions I'm seeing in the chat and the Q&A. Give it a moment for folks to add anything else. But I'll pose back to the group if there's any other kind of final thoughts on the escape room game and its impacts, or how you enjoyed it.
Oh, I was just gonna say again that I really enjoyed having that team building and really seeing everybody's strengths. And I don't know, like after you guys had left, we kind of just stayed in that room and just kind of talked a little bit more. I think at that point, like I only really talked to a couple of my coworkers, just because I've worked with them in a different job beforehand. So I was still getting used and getting to know everybody at the center as well, which it left a really good opportunity for us to get to know each other and talk about something that we did together as well. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I always think about it every once in a while as well. Um, and it always makes me a little more excited to see the data that they send out with our stats and everything, because again, that really helps me feel a little more like secure in what I'm doing, and I can always pivot what I'm doing as a peer support worker based off of what the youth were interested in and had said.
There's another question in the chat as well, but Cheyenne, go first.
I was just gonna say definitely like it created a connection, and it was like it made me feel comfortable as a youth peer support worker going down to conferences and having met both of you, just to create that connection. And then like future online Zoom meetings or anything, I would I'd be so excited to see you because I know you now. Whereas like, oh, I'm talking to strangers, like it just created that sense of connection and community. And I appreciate that. And what was the other thing? I think that's all I'll share for now. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah,
Love
I'll
it.
echo that. It's so fun now being in meetings, be like, hey, I actually like know these people like beyond the face. Do you want me to say the question in the chat, or Luke, are you going to say something?
No, I was gonna say there's one more question in the chat.
Do you see an important role of arts-based methods or other novel methods like this to inform the needs for future research, evaluation, and policy in the province? I've always been a huge advocate for creative methods and creative work. So having an opportunity to kind of gamify our work and creating this, I've done it in some other spaces, creating, snakes and ladders games or and things like that. And as part of our peer support portfolio, we used a lot of different art methods to capture experiences of youth peer support worker. And I like from a researcher perspective, seeing the outputs from those and seeing that the art that's getting created, seeing the dialogues that it produces. Lillian, like you said, it engages you to sit and have these conversations in a deep and meaningful way. I think is something that folks should consider and look into. Obviously, it's creative, maybe a little more research intent or resource intensive than a survey might be, but it really elicits some really deep thoughts. So I would say everyone should be doing some sort of arts-based method in their research, but don't take that as you will.
And maybe I'll just add quickly, speaking more, I think, to novel methods and just highlighting, the sharing circle for wellness evaluation we had focused on earlier. I think leaning into those two-eyed methods of research and evaluation are also very important. And just recognizing a lot of peer support work, and Lillian and Cheyenne highlighted this, it's really relational, right? So I think when we look at traditional evaluation and research approaches where you really try to categorize things into variables, sometimes you miss that relational nature of it. So using some of those more novel methods that really do capture the connection and the community and the relationality between not only youth peer support workers and clients, but also the community as well, I think are really important to integrate into projects too.
And maybe I'll circle into that as we're saying novel methods. I think these methods are actually quite old. If we go back to Indigenous methodology, to seeing approaches, or other kind of cultural methodologies where those relational pieces are at the forefront. Maybe that's the kind of methods we need to lean into. And we are close to time. Tracy.
Yeah. Excuse me, great. I love that. And I love how you landed on Indigenous methodologies, because that's something that kind of across the board is needed and is being advocated for. And having those arts-based approaches and those relationships is really what makes the work meaningful for everybody. So thank you for this wonderful presentation. I'll stop recording the webinar now. It will be available through some different means. So those of you that registered on Zoom, you'll get a notification about that. And I wish you all a great rest of your day. So panelists, if you want to stay on, I'll just stop the recording. And folks who attended, thank you for coming.